What is up guys, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we are doing Subscriber Sunday. Subscriber Sunday is when we cover our very own subreddit, r/daddycringe. Yes, it's still named that. So if you would like your story shared to the world, please post on r/daddycringe and I'm sure we will cover it on one Sunday. Time depending, of course. If you're new here, please consider hitting that like, that subscribe, and maybe that notification bell if you enjoy the content, of course. And with that being said, let's get straight into today's stories. Much love, guys. Our first story is from our very own Raven's Arts. Mean teacher accuses me of tracing because my work is too good for an 8-year-old. I give full permission for anyone to use this, not sure where it exactly fits, but I had to pick something. This all happened in 1978 and is the story of how my mean teacher learned a hard lesson. When I was 8, I had a teacher who assigned a dinosaur drawing project, accused me of tracing because my drawing was too good. It was a T-Rex which we didn't have any pictures of for an 8-year-old. I of course said I didn't and was offended by her accusation, but she called me a liar and dragged me to the principal. This was teacher's first mistake. My mum was called and told by the teacher, who insisted on telling my mum herself she needed to come to the school because I was cheating during art. That was my teacher's second mistake. Well, you see, mum was an artist, had a master's degree in it actually, along with degrees for English and literature, and had been teaching me to draw since I was old enough to hold a crayon. When my mum got there, she listened to the teacher, heard the accusation then asked, then the following conversation followed. This was a long time ago, but since my mum loved to talk about it at parties and family gatherings, I remember it well. My mum said, "Did you see her do it?" To which the teacher replied, "No, but it had clearly been traced from a book." "From which book did it come from?" "What? If she traced it, where did she trace it from? Which book?" Teacher, in a defensive tone, "I didn't see a book, but that doesn't mean she didn't use one." Mum's voice now slow and glacial. Bad sign. "So, you have no proof she traced, cheated as you put it, but you still accused her." Teacher in an extremely condescending voice, "Well, her work is way too good for an 8-year-old. I couldn't draw that well at her age. Therefore she must be tracing. It's obvious." My teacher's third and worst mistake, talking down to my mum. Mum in a tone colder than Antarctica in midwinter, "So, because you couldn't do it at her age, nobody can? Really?" Mum glared at her for a moment, then calmly asked the principal for a piece of paper and pencil, which she gave my mum. Mum gave them me to hold and told me to draw a Chinese dragon. My favourite at the time. I drew them often. I drew the dragon as all three of them watched. No pressure, right? When I finished, it was actually pretty decent. Mum picked it up and handed it to the principal, who looked at it, then me, then turned to the teacher and wordlessly handed it to my mum. Mum took the drawing and waved it under the teacher's nose. She said, "And you call yourself a teacher? Apologise to my daughter, now." Teacher, face best red, grudgingly said, "Sorry." Clearly didn't mean it. Turned and was going to leave when principal told her to wait. Principal then apologised for wasting my mum's time, told me to go home and ushered us out of her office. As we left, I heard principal's raised voice as she yelled at my teacher. That teacher never bothered me again and was gone by next fall. I'm in my 40s now, self-employed, married with kids, went to 3 colleges and currently have 3 degrees, literature, biology and art. Wow. It's that attitude though, isn't it? Because you can't do it, someone else can't. I know loads of younger kids that are absolutely amazing at drawing. I mean, you see them on YouTube all the time these days, like these 5-year-olds that can do amazing things. And not just in art, I mean maths and all sorts, absolutely incredible. It's again typical with entitled people judging books by their covers and by their age even, you know. Wow. Thank you very much Raven's Arts for posting that. Much appreciated. Our next story is from More a Dog. Parents sprained my ankle for a make-believe drug. Long-time YouTube lurker, love your channel. Ignore any bad formatting please. My r/insane parent story. When I was a freshman in high school, I played Skyrim endlessly. It was my favourite game and I'd always talk about it, make posts about it on Facebook wall, play it non-stop. Don't make fun of me for starting on ES5. Obviously the Khajiit were my favourite race and I always played as one and love reading about the Khajiiti lore. My parents have always been very hot-headed and quick to anger, even if they meant well. Well, one day I made a post about doing skooma. For those of you that don't know, skooma is a made up hallucinogenic drug that Khajiit people have known to use recreationally in the games. On my Facebook wall, as a sort of joke reference, some of you can see where this is going already. While I was asleep, around 12 AM, my parents barged into my room and my dad was yelling at me to wake up. I sat up super confused and started making my way down my ladder, loft bed. My dad didn't want to wait, so he grabbed my arm and yanked me the rest of the way down. It was only about 3 wide set steps, but I wasn't ready for it when I landed. Pain shot up my ankle, but I didn't even have a chance to wince because I was being forcefully dragged into the living room. They sat me down, still yelling at me about what drugs I was on. How could I do this to them? Eventually they stopped yelling and glowered at me, expecting a response. I was so utterly upset and confused, I just asked what the hell they were going on about. I was just a normal dork, I didn't do any drugs. Then they proceeded to turn on the TV, and they had my Facebook post about skooma pulled up on their laptop, cast into the TV. I didn't even connect the dots, I just stared at them still confused, and asked them what they were mad about. They just shoved my dad's phone in my face with the skooma wiki pulled up, as he shouted the first line in my face. Skooma is a potion produced from moon sugar. It's a highly addictive narcotic, and its users pass through bouts of euphoria, followed by protracted lethargy. I just stared at them in disbelief as they stared right back, expecting me to own up to my drug addiction. I was instantly filled with rage because I'd sprained my ankle. Being woken up at 12 AM on a school night abruptly, been screamed at and berated over a video game drug that not even my character did. I just sat there as my face distorted with anger, and I very exasperatedly said, "Dad, please read the rest." My mum came over and they read the wiki article together. Their red faces soon returned to normal as they realised it was just from a video game and their straight-edged daughter hadn't got addicted to skooma. After they figured it out, all their anger dissipated almost immediately and they went, "Oh, okay, never mind, haha, sorry," like it was some big misunderstanding, and they hadn't just grossly overreacted and harmed me physically and mentally in the span of 10 minutes. I was so angry with them, I just went something like, "Are you kidding me?" as they got snippy with me, saying stuff like, "Well, we all make mistakes, you have no reason to be mad, go to bed now." They legit were angry with me for being upset at this horrible accusation. The worst part, the witty article is from like 8 years ago that they read. The next line mentioned skooma being fake and in the video game. It was seriously the next sentence. "Thanks for coming to my vent. This happened like 10 years ago or something, and since I moved out, my parents have been better, and I love them. But when I was living with them, my god." Getting skooma mixed up, man. You can sort of see them being worried about you taking drugs and stuff, even if they don't know what skooma is. Obviously, they're older. So they can know what skooma is and they're worried about you taking drugs. But yeah, there's no excuse for like grabbing you like by your wrist like they did and pulling you off a ladder and hurting your leg and things. But yeah, wowzers. Thank you very much for sharing that story. And I'm glad things are looking up and you still love your parents and they haven't warped you enough to disown them. Much love to you. Our next story is from Skin Deep Bree. Today I fucked up by trying to be MacGyver. Today I fucked up by trying to open an Amazon box with a Smith & Wesson tactical blade. I'd like to start off by saying that this happened in June 2019 and I have a history of being accident prone. It all began when my husband came home from work and brought in an Amazon box from our porch. So I, like many other people, was excited to open it. In my great wisdom I grabbed my husband's tactical knife, picked up the package and decided to cut towards me. The problem was I did not have a good grip on the hilt of the knife, so it went straight down as the package was opening and landed pointy end on my foot. Luckily the blade bounced out at impact rather than sinking deeper in. Unfortunately the knife did go in about half an inch and the blood started to squirt everywhere. I have a tendency to bleed more since I take blood thinners. I am also prone to blood clots. My kitchen was starting to look like a scene out of a horror movie. At the time, husband was standing at the opposite side of the island in our kitchen, so dear husband did not see all the blood that was squirting all over the floor. Also, I was pretty sure I may have sliced a nerve or was in shock because I did not feel a thing. Dear husband comes around the island, sees blood gushing from my foot, and I said, "I need you to bring me some paper towels, medical tape, rubbing alcohol and super glue." The look on my husband's face was priceless when I made this request. DH was sheet white, mouth agape, and looked like he was about to faint. On the bright side, he brought me what I asked. After DH brought me these items while he made several futile attempts to keep our daughter in her bedroom, since the blood had not been cleaned up yet. My daughter is 7 years old and has a weird obsession with medical TV shows, so when she saw all the blood, she wanted to know what was happening. They both stood there and watched as I sat on my kitchen floor cleaning my wound, trying to glue it back together. And when I failed miserably, I compressed the wound with paper towels and medical tape. At this point I was trying to avoid going to urgent care because I did not want stitches, but the paper towels continued to soak through. I realised I was going to need stitches. I was hoping my MacGyver action would lead to a better rest of my day, but no. I now have to go to urgent care and explain that I have butterfingers and am capable of stabbing myself in the foot. DH and I get to urgent care and I'm taken right back. I have to explain 4 times to 4 different staff members what happened before the doctor comes in. Each one seemed to find it mildly amusing how my accident happened. The doctor told me that I would need 3 to 4 stitches, and that because I could not feel the top of my foot, I most likely sliced a nerve and possibly sliced a tendon. Great, I thought. I might need surgery too. I get home after my stitches, and for the rest of my evening, both DH and my 7-year-old daughter tell me I'm never allowed to play with knives again. I was told by my 7-year-old that, "Mummy, you're not allowed to open Amazon boxes either." Several days later, of course, a box from Amazon arrived, and I bring it inside. I instantly reach for my husband's tactical knife, extend the blade, and get ready to open the package. And like a freaking ninja, my daughter appears out of nowhere. "Mummy, you're not allowed to use knives, and you're not allowed to open Amazon boxes." I do not believe my 7-year-old has the dominion over me, so I looked at her and I proceeded to open the box without breaking eye contact. Of course, the knife slipped, but luckily this time it only landed on the island and not back in my foot. So from now on, my family makes fun of me every time I open any type of box with any type of knife, and still to this day I cannot feel the top of my foot at all. I did follow up with a paediatrist to check if the tendon was cut and if there was nerve damage. I did successfully slice the nerve completely, so goodbye to the feeling in the top of my foot, but the tendon is fine and I won't need surgery. Oh my word. Would you just please listen to your daughter before you do more damage to yourself? Oh, it's just making my foot curl just thinking about that knife landing and slicing a nerve. Oh my god. Please listen to your family. No more touching that knife. Get some of those kid scissors. Those kid scissors are just as good, you know, the little plastic ones. They're cut through Amazon tape, no problem. Oh dear. Please listen to your family. No more knives, no more Amazon boxes. Thank you so much, Skin Deep Breathe, for that story. And I'm hoping, although you can't feel your foot, I hope it's in a much better place now. Our next story is from Alex Maddie Lucy. Bully a student with auditory processing issues and prepare to lose your job at the hand of their best friend. Disclaimers on mobile, sorry for formatting. Not my story per se, and I'm lazy, so feel free to point out any missing punctuation. So here's the cast. Me, OP, only relevant in parts of this. Molly, my friend, fake name. Slough, my math teacher, his nickname, only relevant at the end. Karen, awful Spanish teacher, her real name. So a bit of background info for it to show that the witch deserved this. Everyone in grades 7 and 8 has to take Spanish in my school. It was unfortunate to have Karen for both years. I can't speak Spanish to save my life, so I came out failing Spanish, and Karen refused to help anyone outside of shouting Spanish to English translations at us. Me having APD, auditory processing disorder, only heard the Spanish, so sat there clueless. Side note, I use microphones now that the teacher wears and put headphones in so I can hear and process everything that's being said. She refused to repeat herself, and I just said screw it, I'm not taking Spanish in 9th grade. Molly witnessed all this and was my rock throughout. Molly was a straight A student in Spanish and tried to teach me some of what Karen has been teaching. I still struggle despite Molly's best effort to keep me up to speed. Karen gives out code 3s, detention, and code 4s, ISS, like candy on Halloween. She refused to let Molly repeat what she had said to me so I could learn. She gave Molly a code 3 for disrupting the lesson, and me a code 4 for being too stupid for this school. Not what she put on the form. She put disrupting class several times. I hadn't spoken apart from signing to Molly to repeat. I know basic sign, and when my anxiety takes over, I go into selective mutism mode. Molly and I have hated her since. There were several incidents regarding my dyslexia, however this post would be too long with them as well. Anyway, on to the revenge. In grade 8, Molly started recording Karen's rants at me and calling her names, as well as the code 3s and 4s she gave out. Molly was nice, so didn't show these to the principal straight away. She gave Karen 2 more years. She meticulously tracks all code 3s and code 4s possible, even going as far as asking Karen for help at dinner and recording the response. She does this every lesson she has Karen. I knew this and started taking Molly with me to places like the bathroom and dinner hall when I knew she was monitoring them, and signing start and stop to Molly. Karen still doesn't know sign language. Then walking past Karen, who would have a complete fit at me for going to the toilet during lunch or going to get some food. All recorded on Molly's phone. 3 weeks ago, Molly showed the principal. Karen had marked her down due to using sign in her exam, along with speaking. She does it automatically sometimes. Everything else was perfect. She got an F just for using sign language. It was conversation and she practiced it with me. The principal said he would review it and Molly just waited. The principal walked past right as Karen started her rant on how stupid people shouldn't have taken Spanish and that the whole class were getting Fs for the semester. The principal swiftly took action and fired Karen. I was speaking to Slough today and he was talking about how he had to cover Spanish and told me that Karen was fired because of a complaint by a student and how he knew I was a part of it, as it had been mentioned that just because someone was signing didn't mean they were stupid and that the discrimination wouldn't be tolerated. We were talking alone in a quiet room, so I was speaking to him and able to have a conversation without the mic or signing. I only found out off Molly at lunch that happened when she spoke to the principal. I know this was long, and thanks for reading. That's an incredibly sad situation. I'm really sorry you had to go through that. You know, I'd never understand when teachers get this little power trip over people. You know, that people like are in there to learn, and it's clear you was having your issues with the auditory stuff, and they would have known that. And then they just couldn't be bothered. It sounds like it to me. They just couldn't be bothered to deal with it, so they put you down as stupid, which is just ridiculous. But I'm glad they got their comeuppance in the end, and I hope you are doing much better now. And fair play to your friend Molly. She sounds like an awesome person. Our next story is from Northwoods Traveller. Dean at middle school asked former student to beat someone up. Hey there, Lord Father Mark of the Cringe, and comrade viewers. I've been watching a ton of your vids recently, and I've been debating what to post for a while. Now I have a story. I expect to be in your next video. Well, yeah, kind of. If I'm not, I'll call YouTube and have your channel fired. My husband is the CEO. Okay, Karen. Anyway, I'm your ordinary 17-year-old straight white cis male. My life's ambition is to live in a van. I have the misfortune of living in Florida, the soggy dong of the United States. Other than Disney World and Florida Man, it is known for the worst education system in the country. What some Europeans, no offence, seem not to understand about the USA is how autonomous and different the states really are. Part of that autonomy is that each state runs education differently. As I said before, Florida is the worst. I have a plethora of stories, including how school administrators threatened to send me to a local psychology hospital for wacko kids, a teacher legitimately asking me if I was a white supremacist, hell no, and being bullied by my math teacher, but this is my craziest. Now for some backstory. So I live on the sun coast of Florida, the region south of Tampa Bay. It is full of development, gated communities meant to attract new people or something. Essentially they are the neighbourhood equivalent of plastic water bottles. Suburban hell. For some reason I'm unable to comprehend people voluntarily live in them. The surrounding area is basically empty fields, everything is flat. Florida is the flattest state in the union, and there are no stores aside from the Publix and gas stations unless you drive to the coast itself. Everything is just too new for non-housing development to keep up. That includes the schools. My family was one of many to move here. We're from Minnesota. Shout to my homies from the land of 10,000 lakes. So my middle school was incredibly overcrowded and underfunded. Our textbooks were falling apart and our teachers were generally lazy and sometimes borderline abusive. Say what you want about Bill Nye, but he isn't a stand-in for actually teaching science. My 7th grade science class was basically focused on watching his videos and reading kids' science magazines and doing activities in them. Sounds great, but after a month of Bill Nye the science guy, you would Bill Nye want to die. Yet, nothing was done. The school just didn't care. They get funding through taxes, so pay is guaranteed. And even if they did step in, they couldn't replace the lazy teachers because there were none to replace them with. The only time I've ever seen in my going on 7 years here in Florida was when a dean asked former students to attack one of the kids in my school. I had to have been in 7th grade. I'm in 11th now. And I was on the bus loop with my friends just dicking around when I saw a really little kid clutching his arm running past me. I thought nothing of it until I saw a crowd gather around where he had ran from. I of course went with my friends to investigate. What I saw was a pool of blood on the concrete, with the school deputy standing over it and holding off the crowd. Later we found out that the dean's son, he went to the elementary school across from the middle school, had come over to wait for his mum, the dean. While waiting, he was playing with some of the kids at my school and he ended up getting hurt. The little dude was roughhousing and fell, breaking his arm, the bone coming out, breaking through skin. Everyone saw it as just an unfortunate accident. Even though it was an accident, the kid who actually did hurt the dean's son was punished accordingly. It seems though that our dean wasn't satisfied. While at the hospital, a former student texted one of her, supposedly through his grandma's cell phone. "Did this person break your kid's arm?" And the dean answered, "Yes." She said that the kid picked up her son and dropped him, so the kid she was texting told her, "Don't worry, I'll pick him up and drop him too." So the dean replied, "Please do." All of this was exposed, and guess what happened? The psycho bitch was demoted to a floating substitute, meaning she will fill in for teachers when they are sick. Basically her rank was lowered. Ironically, this means she will have more interaction with students. By now, she probably has her old job back. The year after she was allowed to apply for a full teaching position, parents and students alike hated the fact she wasn't fired, but Florida schools don't care. It turns out that the dean wanted to press charges against a student who broke her kid's arm, but the sheriff stepped in, saying that it was an accident and therefore she had no grounds for a lawsuit. Thank you for reading my delightful tale. I have more if you like. This actually isn't my first post here. I had to take down my prior post because one of the people who was involved read it and ribbled their nipples. What does that mean? I genuinely felt bad at first, so when they said take it down, I did right away. I gave no private information or other stuff like that, but the topic was personal for a few other people. I was just telling my point of view of everything that happened. Afterwards, they used my slip as an excuse to be an arsehole to a dear friend of mine, making her cry. To me that means they forfeited their right to have me care, so if people are curious, I'd retell the story. I hope to become a regular uploader here. I'm digging the community aspect of it all, and on that bombshell, it's time to end. Good night. Thank you so much. I love that story. Really well written as well, so it made it much easier to read for me, and they're the best ones because it's a bliss to read, you know. But what does ribbled nipples mean? Oh, you got me on that one, dude. But bone breaking through skin, man. Holy crap. Florida teachers, they gotta be some sort of insane. Why would you put yourself in that position to say, please do? That's absolutely crazy. Wow, thank you so much for sharing that story. And yeah, I would love to hear more stories from yourself, of course, because as I always say, this is a very community-based channel. That's what I like to think of it as anyway. We see the same faces on our channel every day, which I absolutely love. I love that to bits. Seeing your comments every day really makes it worth my time making the post, you know? So thank you so much. Our next story is from Howling Eclipse. Much love to you. Left-handed is for sinners. Heya, so long time watcher, second time posting as I've only shared one other story with Daddy Cringe / Mark Narrations. By the way, if this gets posted to YouTube, anyone watching this, give Mark a like / thumbs up or subscribe. He puts so much effort into his videos. Hey. I think this story fits within entitled people / parents, but please tell me if I'm wrong. Also heads up, I am new to this, so sorry for any format errors. It's also a long one. A bit of backstory, this story is from roughly 2002, grade 2. I don't remember the conversation exactly word for word, so I put some paraphrasing into this. I know it was long ago, sorry. However, I never thought to share this till recently due to thinking it was completely normal. Turns out, it wasn't. My parents just divorced and I was moved to a new school mid-year, already having a disadvantage when it came to class material, which I basically had to catch up for a couple of weeks or months. Don't remember, but it was quite late into the school year. At the time, I was an undiagnosed shy little girl who had severe ADHD and autism, was diagnosed in grade 4. So if you can imagine, I did not fit in well. Grade 2 in my country is where we really start to practice our handwriting and reading, where grade 1 was basically the warm-up. In our school system, we go to elementary school for kindergarten, grade 6, and then high school grade 7 to grade 11, etc. In elementary, however, we're in the same class roster / classmates from kindergarten till grade 6, so everyone basically knew each other for 3 years before I joined this school. Each classmate seeming to already know exactly how to write and which hand to write with. Me on the other hand, pun intended, had an issue with deciding which hand would be my writing hand / main hand. I had no idea. I was stuck. I mainly went horseback riding as my sport, which required both hands to do the same thing, so I never really needed to know. So I kept going back and forth for a while, playing with a pencil and trying to figure out what hand to use, and eventually deciding I like my left hand. Entitled parent, mother. She is sorta in this story, but doesn't have dialogue. I do have other stories about her, those can be for another time. Entitled teacher, we call her Mrs. Z. Why not? Also important, she is a very religious teacher, hardcore Catholic, and always wore a cross. I didn't have any issues with religion, just setting the scene. Me? I wonder who that could be. F. Friend. No dialogue, really just there. This wholesome, wonderful story begins with a little booklet writing with my left hand, practicing, important for later, completely unaware of my surroundings and focused on fighting with this new tool in my hand. Hyper-focus for those who don't know. Mrs. Z was circulating the classroom, without me knowing at the time, making sure we're all focusing on our work, as she ever so quietly with those heeled clickety-clackety shoes hovers around the room like a hawk circling its prey before the kill. As she makes her way to my desk with her clickety-clackety shoes getting louder and louder, my heart starts to race as I hear her drawing near. Now noticing all the sounds around me, the scribbling sharp sounds of pencils, kids snickering, and some going quiet as she approaches. Clickety, clackety. Her shoes stop dead in their tracks, right next to my desk. Full of dread, I look up from my page of gibberish scribbles. I'm greeted with a face with stone-cold features, piercing eyes, with a cross around her neck. Mrs. Z says, "What are you doing?" Sounding as if I'd just got caught cheating. I said, I'm practicing. A little out of it from being so involved in my work and caught off guard. She says, "Well, you aren't doing it correctly," in a quite stern tone, for me anyways, to make me flinch a bit. "Make sure the pencil is held correctly and you press your pencil hard enough onto the paper." Then she notices I'm using my left hand. "Also, you are using the wrong hand. Change that immediately. No one uses their left hand to write." I said, "Oh, okay, but it feels okay." To which she says, "I'm going to do my rounds now, and when I come back, I hope this entire page is complete and you are holding the pencil correctly." Turning on her heel, she goes back to her desk with that clickety-clackety going away. I tried my right hand and it didn't feel right. It made me frustrated and I was getting overwhelmed. So I disregarded her right way and went back to making sure I'd at least finished the page. Time passes, no idea how much, but the page is done now. This time I didn't hear her shoes. I was so focused into making sure the page would be complete. It was as if I was completely alone in the room. I didn't hear a single sound. All of a sudden, out of the silence comes a loud snap. It was Mrs. Z at my desk with a look of pure disgust on her face, with a meter stick on my desk, leaving it in place while she slapped it down. She said, "Change the hand you're writing with now." Her face was so red, it almost looked like she was a tomato. Her red lipstick didn't help. I said, but I like using this hand and She cuts me off. "Now!" I can't remember what happened next, but it was a blur. There was yelling, a ton of it, shaking heads of despair. I didn't listen to her and I zoned out and was more terrified that she was going to kill me. Unexpected, she grabbed my hand tightly, pencil in hand, and forced it into my right hand, pushing it against the paper, forcing me to write as she traced the letters. She was holding so tightly I could feel the heat and sweat coming off her hand, making it slippery as my hand was shaking. I remember this well as I was terrified and can remember the smell of her gross, musty breath breathing onto my face. The whole class watched this and started to giggling to themselves. Mrs. Z didn't care. After class ended, I later found out Mrs. Z called my mum, telling her I refused to participate in class and I would refuse to write correctly. Without getting my side of the story, I was berated and yelled at. I think I was even given detention. The next day, I come in wondering what was in store for me, and I froze. Everyone was in class already, staring at me and laughing quietly amongst each other. Mrs. Z was dragging my desk. Books, pens, paper was stored inside the desk, making it heavy, and placed it right next to her desk, with my back facing the other students. I was told I must sit, be quiet, and listen. How Mrs. Z put it, sit there next to the desk and be taught a lesson of going against her. Something like that. For weeks I was in that spot, the eyes of the other kids staring at my back. It felt like months, years even. Every time I tried to use my left hand, Mrs. Z would hit it with a ruler, yell, scream, or come and force my pencil out of my left hand and into my right hand, slapping down her ruler on my desk if I would space out or lose focus or move too much. She watched me as if I was a nasty stain she had to remove, her putrid breath coming down on me every time she came near. I was terrified. I never told my mother what she did. I couldn't. Sitting at my desk, I couldn't move. I was stuck there, the humming and soundscapes of the classroom looming over me, with a more defined sound of my classmates calling me names. I won't say which, but one started with R and ended with ED. I would get home and my mother would be on my case about this class. She didn't help and always took the teacher's side. After a while, I finally started only using my right hand out of fear. My desk was put back, but the damage was done. The whole class saw me now as an outcast, a joke, and an easy target. I was too terrified to talk to anyone, ashamed and embarrassed. I was then put into school after tutoring classes to improve my handwriting. However, to only use my right hand, I was told constantly to redo things, that it's still unreadable. You would think this is a victory for Mrs. Z, right? That this would be the end of it. Nope, she would after that constantly call my name for readings. I spoke really quietly, make me do extra work, stay after class to clean, and detentions. My loving mother would say it's for your own good, constantly correct me on class etiquette and saying I should be more like the other kids. From that started the cycle of me getting bullied my entire elementary school life. Sorry if this was a long story and not all that interesting. I didn't go too into detail about some of the torment I went through, as I honestly didn't want to relive the whole situation over again. Being 25 years old now, with all that time that's passed, I still use my right hand for writing. My handwriting is still horrible. However, I'm now an artist and do draw a lot. To this day I wonder, if I just wrote with my left hand and she let me be, where would I be? Side note, for people wondering, the entire class did bully me, harshly, but I ended up making friends with 2 classmates. We did grow apart for years. Just recently, I met one friend from then. We spoke about Mrs. Z and how she was a horrible, scary teacher. F pointed out to me that what she did was not normal, that was wrong, and told me I should share this story. Also, my mother would not know of most of this, as there are tons of events with her that makes this look like a walk in the park. If you guys enjoyed this and want to know about my entitled parents, I can share that too. Howling, oh my word. That is a lot of information to digest. It was a great story, by the way, but incredibly sad that you had to go through that. As I've mentioned in previous videos, I've been through bullying, not by a teacher, but by 2 lads that absolutely ruined my last 2 years in school, made me petrified to go to school and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I'm not taking it away from what you've been through, because bullying, there's no excuse for it, and it ruined your life. And I can imagine, well, you're still replaying this in your head now, like I still replay what happened to me. It blows my mind that people don't think how this hurts people in the future. It's just makes me sick. We'd love to know more about those entitled parent stories if you have time, of course. And thank you so much for sharing that. Don't forget, if you're we'd love to see some of your art on our Discord channel. Don't forget to post it in the art section there. Share away, Howling. And we have another story from Raven's Arts. Entitled Great Aunt tried to humiliate an 8-year-old me in front of the family, but I had something else in mind. This is a combo of entitled parent, pro-revenge and malicious compliance, but I could only pick one flair and I give full permission for it to be used. This happened a long time ago, and until recently I heard a similar story, had all but forgotten it. I wrote a condensed version in the comments section, but felt I need to write as much of it as I can remember for posterity's sake. I'm not going to give you the cast because I think you're smart enough to figure it out for yourselves. A little backstory: I'm female and a Nicaraguan on my dad's side. Mum's of Scottish ancestry, so I'm caramel skinned, with red hair and green eyes. I look more Russian than Hispanic. I was 8 years old, skinny, and at the time this happened was small for my age. When my family came to America, one branch of the family decided to settle in Florida, the other in California. The reactor still in Nicaragua. Great aunt and her brood came from the Florida branch. The year was 1978. Okay, enough background, onto the story. My great aunt, who was such a biatch for the short time I met her, and her rotten crotch fruit came to visit us for 2 weeks from Miami. She was staying with her brother, my grandfather, one of my aunts, my great-grandmother not related to her, and several of my first cousins, all in grandfather's house. They'd been there a week when I came over, when I skipped that visit. Great aunt, I found, was the type of mum who dressed well, didn't help out or clean, expect to be catered to, and would buy, or force/nag others to buy, stuff for a brood of brats. There were 3, 2 older boys, 12 and 13 and a half, one girl 11, just to shut them up, and she ignored anything bad they did. So of course all 3 had a charming habit of throwing, screaming, throw themselves on the floor, tantrums, whenever they didn't get what they wanted, or if they took, damaged or broken something and got called out on it, their mum never chastised, punished them or apologised for their shitty behaviour, according to my aunt. They pulled this crap on everyone in the house except with my grandfather, who they feared, and great-grandmother, who, on their second day there, actually put one of the boys, the loudest of the three, over her knee and tanned his ass, which made the other two shut up fast. It was the 70s, deal with it. All three were snotty little arseholes and mean as hell, but the girl, for some reason, really didn't like me and went out of her way to mess with me when the adults and my cousins weren't around, saying mean things, knocking my stuff off the table, spilling or taking the drink, and mean mugging me. Keep in mind this was the very first time we'd met, and all this crap had happened within the space of 4 hours from when I'd met her, so I had no idea what her problem was. I was there with my parents, who were in the kitchen, and I was in my female cousin's room reading a book, just minding my own business, when girl's second cousin came in, snatched my book out of my hands and began slowly ripping pages out, looking at me the whole time. As a child, I wasn't confrontational and didn't start fights, but I was a total book fiend and really loved my books, so when this bitch started ripping pages out, naturally I snatched it back and told her to get out. The problem started when her response was to slap me after I snatched my book from her, then bitched at me for, paraphrasing here, not letting her rip pages out of a book I was reading. She managed to rip the title page out and part of another before I took it from her. My response was to throw my Kool-Aid in her face. After the drink hit her face, she started screeching for Mummy, who came in, didn't bother finding out what happened and began shaking her finger in my face, screaming at me, calling me bad names and being very threatening. I was scared, but I knew if she hit me, even touched me, my parents would beat her ass. She demanded I go with her into the kitchen, where my parents and all adults were having an impromptu reunion with my other aunts and uncles, and apologised to her, Nina, in front of everyone. The cousin who I'd come to visit was in the bathroom when all this went down. She then tried to grab my arm, which angered me, had an issue with bullying, and grabbing me was a big trigger. I violently pulled out of her grip and yelled, "Don't touch me! Don't ever touch me!" This caused her to back up in surprise, but she recovered fast and basically shooed me into the kitchen like I was a wayward chicken or something, her Kool-Aid covered brat following. I went into the kitchen, head down, hair hang loose, hiding my face, but I wasn't crying. Oh no, I wasn't crying, I was pissed. When we came in, Great Aunt noticed that I had attacked her Nina, along with some crap I can't remember, and that I had something to say to everyone. She then pushed me between my shoulder blades, causing me to stumble a little. This caused both my parents to stand, Dad looking particularly pissed, but I looked at them through my hair and smiled. Knowing me like they did, my parents sat back down. I was smart for my age, and even though I was small, I wasn't completely helpless. And they had a pretty good idea what was coming, considering they're the ones who taught me. They should have, lol. This is basically what I remember from back then, with the help of my dad and one aunt, who was also present, and is mostly accurate. Great Aunt, in an impatient, snotty tone, "OP, aren't you going to say you're sorry?" I was silent. She said, "Well?" I took a deep breath, looking at my parents and all my other relatives, began thus, "I am so sorry, so sorry." I turned to Great Aunt, "That your daughter is a nasty, spoiled little bitch who rips other people's books up and slaps them when their person won't let them keep doing it, and I'm sorry I ever met you, her and your arsehole sons, and I wish you'd all go back to fucking Miami." Great Aunt stood there speechless, mouth agape, face white with shock and looking very much like a dead trout as I ran to my parents, who, after moving my hair back and taking a good look at the red handprint on my cheek, got up and started yelling at Great Aunt. The things they called her and her kids and suggested she do to herself were not only colourful but both physically and anatomically impossible and would have made Ozzy Osbourne blush. The rest of the family were equally outraged. Great Aunt tried to get some of my relatives to side with her, but I was a good kid and always been nice and respectful when I came over, unlike her 3 walking diaper stains. So all she got were glacial stares, dirty looks, or more verbal tongue lashings from my other aunts and uncles. In the end, they were told to pack their crap and spend the rest of their visit in a motel. This incident was the final straw as far as my aunt and great-grandmother were concerned, as there'd been nothing but pains in the arse since they arrived. Grandfather wasn't home when this happened, but backed his mum and kids. I got an ice pack, a new cup of Kool-Aid, and a very forced apology from second cousin, along with $5 to get a new book. It wasn't badly damaged, but my parents just wanted to make her pay. They left the house the next day, and I didn't see them again until I was 12. That encounter was worse, involving the 2 male cousins trying to abduct my favourite female cousin. But I think I'll save that one for another time. Thank you once again, Raven's Arts, for sharing that story. Holy crap, I loved your comeback that you stood there and turned around and said that to them. I'd love to see her face as you were spewing that at her. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the Subscriber Sunday. I've enjoyed reading your stories, so don't forget to post them in our subreddit if you have your own stories, and I will try my very best to get them on every Sunday that I can. If you did enjoy this, please consider hitting that like, that subscribe, and that notification bell, joining us on Discord. They're a friendly bunch in there. They don't bite too much. They're only occasionally. And with that being said, I will see you in the next one. Much love, guys. Thank you very much.